This is a rant against people who treat animals and people they think are less than badly. Aloha, and welcome back to my channel, the Baby Boomer Booktuber, with me, Marilyn Maya, and this is Chick, my 13-year-old Havanese dog. I brought her in today because I'm going to be talking about a book that is a little bit about animals. And I wanted to tell you, hello, Victober, everybody. I haven't done very well, but I've read one book by Chick. It's called Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte. And I had quite the experience reading it. And this is going to be a book review and a rant. So stay tuned for the rant. It's related to the book. Agnes Grey is really a story about Anne Bronte, who was a governess. She was brought up in a parsonage with her father, her brother, and sisters, who are all authoresses. And I had never heard of Anne Bronte before until I read this book, until I went on BookTube and I was recommended Anne Bronte. And I have to tell you, the beginning of the book didn't thrill me. Yes, I was lost in the Victorian time period, and that was very soothing and comforting. But I was not liking the main character that much at first. I found her to be more of a goody-goody, and what we used to call in the 50s and 60s a goody-goody anyway. And she went out in the wide world. She wanted to help her family. Her father was sickly, and throughout the book I didn't get a wonderful impression about him either. I thought that he must have been a nice man, or she was trying to portray him as a nice man, and but he was feeling very guilty because he had married her mother, who came from money but was disowned by her parents because she married a poor parson. I think that's what they're called. Anyway, he's shown to be very self-pitying, or not only self-pitying, but he was always he made himself ill. And I thought to myself, I think he might have some kind of mental illness, because I always think that way. And he seemed to be in a deep depression for most of the story. And I won't go into any spoilers in this book, but I started getting into it around 1/3 of the book. And just to tell you a little bit about the story, she goes and works for a very crude, they're thought of as sort of new money would be thought of today, or merchants, and they're very crude. And I heard, or I read, that that Anne Bronte was criticized about her criticism of the upper classes, and that just wasn't done at that time. And this book, even her sisters complained, I heard, that this book was too critical of the classes that she worked for as a teacher. But as I looked through, as I was reading, I thought I could never take the abuse. I was a teacher myself in a foreign country, in 2 foreign countries. And I would never take the abuse that she took. And a governess was considered by some a higher status, and for some not so much. And she says throughout the book that she didn't want to be treated as a lower, as a lower servant, which would be anyone above that doesn't have an education, or the maids or the cooks, and she wanted to be treated more like an equal, which she really wasn't in any of the places where she worked. So now we get to the second place that she started working, where the family was a little more refined. Not that they treated her much better. So she's left teaching 2 teenage girls. One of them is named Rosalie. I forgot the other one's name offhand. But Rosalie Murray was the girl that we're introduced to. And here comes the the rub, so to speak. I thought, though Rosalie is portrayed as very selfish, which she was, and playing with guys, which she did, but she did show, even though she was portrayed by Anne Bronte as, you know, will be coming to a bad end, or might be coming to a bad end, and she was trying to instill some manners in her and feeling and religion. This girl was she was living for the moment and being young and meeting men and playing with their feelings, which I didn't think was such a terrible idea when you think of the men that she was playing with. But I won't tell you any more about the story that goes on. But I will tell you when I started really getting into the story. And it comes, well, it came before this, that I was interested in the story. And the funny part is the story starts out, and I thought it was going to be an Oliver Twist kind of story, you know, no romance, but I was wrong. Anyway, in this chapter, it's called Confessions, and she's just starting to tell anything about herself or what she looks like. And she says something very meaningful, I thought. It is foolish to wish for beauty. Sensible people never either desire it for themselves or care about it in others. If the mind be but well cultivated and the heart well disposed, no one ever cares for the exterior. And then she goes into the truth. So said the teachers of our childhood, and so say we to the children of the present day, all very judicious and proper, no doubt, but are such assertions supported by actual experience? We are naturally disposed to love what gives us pleasure, and what's more pleasing than a beautiful face, when we know no harm of the possessor at least? A little girl loves her bird. Why? Because it lives and feels, because it is helpless and harmless. A toad likewise lives and feels, and is equally helpless and harmless, but though she would not hurt a toad, she cannot love it like the bird, with its graceful form, soft feathers, and bright sparkling eyes. If a woman is fair and amiable, she is praised for both qualities, but especially the former, by the bulk of mankind. If, on the other hand, she is disagreeable in person and character, her plainness is commonly inveighed against her as her greatest crime, because to common observers it gives the greatest offense, while if she is plain and good, provided she is a person of retired manners and secluded life, no one ever knows of her goodness, except her immediate connections. On the contrary, are disposed to form unfavorable opinions of her mind and disposition, if it be but to excuse themselves for their instinctive dislike of one so unfavored by nature, and vice versa with her whose angel form conceals a vicious heart, or sheds a false deceitful charm over defects and foibles that would not be tolerated in another. They that have beauty, let them be thankful for it and make a good use of it, like any other talent. That they have it not, let them console themselves and do the best they can without. Certainly, though, liable to be overestimated. It is a gift of God and not to be despised. Well, I love that part because I realized before this, she's talking about being plain, though I don't think she really was. She talks about having brown hair, unremarkable gray eyes, that though they be intelligent, not anything special. But of course she was special. Now, this made me think, when we read an author, we read more about, when we read a book written by an author, we understand more about the author. And this made me understand more about Anne Bronte more than it did about Agnes Grey. And as we go on, there are caveats that I want to talk about. But I'm going to give this book 4.5 stars, even though it was a slow build up to the end, which I won't talk about, but even to the middle, which I won't talk about. But in this book, I learned so much about people who were mean to people who were of lesser class than they were, so to speak. And that goes on till this day. People who treat people who aren't pretty less than. And that happened probably to Anne Bronte as well as Agnes Grey. Now, the caveats of this book, which didn't bother me at all, were a lot of religion and some abuse of animals, which I heard Anne Bronte was very much against. Yet I didn't enjoy reading about the abuse of animals, even though they were to bring up something that wasn't really talked about in the Victorian age like it is today. I'll just end this part of my video by saying that I got lost in the Victorian age and want to read more. In fact, I've ordered a book from the library, The Tenant of Widefield Hall, that's it. And I'm looking forward to reading it, even though I was warned that it's not as breezy, though I didn't think this book was breezy, as Agnes Grey. But I love this book, and by the end I was not only a big fan of Agnes Grey, but of Anne Bronte. And like I said in another video, I had chills at the end. And it is a beautiful romance, and it is a beautiful book. So I hope that you will read it. And now for the rant. This is Jasmine, my 14-year-old Havanese. And this is also my rant. But I don't want to rant with my dog in my arms, so I'll put her down. In Agnes Grey, there are a few people, a young boy and a man, who mistreat animals, mostly dogs and birds. And that really made me mad, because in my small town in Hawaii, I had to save 3 dogs already from being abused by their owners. Don't do this, people. Don't treat animals like animals, or how we think of as animals. They're helpless creatures, and we should really stop treating people and animals badly. I read about Carol Burnett and how she always treated everyone the same, whether it be someone who brought her coffee to the top, to her leading men and women. That's the way we should all be, to treat everybody equally and humanely. I think that this world would be a better place if people wouldn't think that they're better than everybody else. We're not better than anyone, and we're not worse than anyone. We should treat other people like we want to be treated. I know that's supposed to be the golden rule, but let's face it, we need a little golden rule in this world right now. Okay, that's all I got to say on my rant. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel like, share, and press the notification bell for more rants, more books, and more of the baby boomer booktuber. Until the next time, my friends, aloha.